Yep.
You know what this is all about. You're like a pro.
I don't know. I didn't know how to use a mic, so I mean, don't hold me to a high pedestal right now.
Welcome to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. Whether you feel that you don't have enough money to start investing or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy, Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me here on the Making More Money for You show. I am your host, Magnus Carter. Just a brief recap. Last week, we covered a topic that a lot of people have struggled with, and with time, money, and actually decisions on where to go, which was vacationing. I had the guests know from travel, Tim and Sade here. We went over some basic things. If you planning on going on vacation this summer, I would recommend you take a listen to that. And at the end of it, there's actually some promotions that they're actually offering on some vacation packages. So that's up to you. I'll let you decide with that. But today I have a very special guest with me. I've known him for a while, and we're going to talk about how to actually have your house make money for you. That's right. Your house sitting there, you're sitting there on your couch in your driveway or on your porch or whatever, and you can actually make money with your house itself. And today I have a very special guest, Cody Smith. Hi, Cody. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Magnus Carter? Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. Well, this is a very odd topic that not a lot of people use, and they don't understand how you can actually make money by doing this. But before we get into that, give us some of your background. What have you been doing? How do you actually came into we'll lead like right into our topic for today.
Yeah. So just a little bit of that background, I guess, going back. So my background is in electrical engineering. I joined DOD, joined the Air Force, and got to move around the country a little bit, and really wanted to start dabbling in real estate. And so first property was actually in California. And so I'm from Mississippi. So like normal house prices are like, you get a pretty decent house for like $120,000, $150,000. You don't even scratch the surface for paying for a driveway in Los Angeles for $150,000.
Well, you might get a mailbox.
Yeah. So the sticker price there, starting in like, you're looking at $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for, normal size homes. Sometimes in not great areas even. But that was our start. We bought a triplex. So we lived in one. We did house hacking. We lived in one unit. We rented out 2 other units, and that paid for the mortgage and some cash flow and a little bit. But it was a gnarly experience, just learning the ins and outs of being my wife. I always took my wife like being a slumlord, but just having tenants, managing a property, dealing with it from the whole 9 yards. And so that was kind of how we dabbled into real estate and rental properties to begin with. But that's certainly not how we ended it, because we ended up selling that property. We got lucky at the top end of the market and was able to move that money back into our next studio station, which happened to be in Mississippi of all places, but a small town, a very small town. And trying to figure out how do we make this work here, because it wasn't the same market. The rental market just didn't look great. And then started getting into and using Airbnb ourselves. Like we didn't have an Airbnb. We just started using it because I was traveling a lot, and I was like, I can do what? Rent out a room for like $30? What?
Okay.
And so I started using Airbnb everywhere I went, and you just get to meet people, and it was great. So that was kind of leading us into our transition, getting into what if we did this ourselves? Like, what if we tried it? And go ahead. Sorry, I was about to cut you off there.
No. Yeah, you're fine with that. So you're actually saying that even in a little small town in Mississippi, you can actually rent out rooms, and you're actually trying to get this to actually work in your current location?
Yeah. So when I was renting out rooms as a guest at other people's Airbnb properties, always in big cities. So when you think, it would just never really crossed our mind to try it in a small town, Mississippi. You didn't live in a touristy place. We weren't near a coast.
Yeah.
There was not a whole lot of reason why you'd think to have an Airbnb. There's nothing touristy about where we live. So whatever images that your guests have right now about Mississippi and where I live, they're probably half right. But we tried it, and actually it was my wife's idea, and she's not quite the adventurous one when it comes to, starting businesses or entrepreneurship or getting real estate. But she was like, I want to try it. And we had a guest bedroom that we never used. It was already furnished. And so we, with literally next to $0 invested, because all the furniture was in there. A lot of people have guest bedrooms.
Right.
We threw it up on Airbnb. We took some really crappy photos with our phone to put it up.
Okay.
And listed it, and just like, all right. And we kind of forgot about it, to be honest. And then like a week later, we got a message on our phones like, hey, someone booked your Airbnb for like 4 days. I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. And from there, it just blew my mind just how easy it was to turn a spare bedroom, which I would consider honestly dead space for the most part, into something for us that literally paid our mortgage plus some.
Yeah. That's what people with houses, and you can probably even do this with 2-3 bedroom apartments as well. As long as you have the space. Am I right?
Yeah. As long as you have the space, you can do it. Like you can technically, any space can be Airbnb. I'm in an Airbnb right now in Utah, and awesome location, wonderful price. And so, just outside of Salt Lake City, but I stayed at a Airbnb in New Orleans before I flew out. And I was looking at some of the things that people are renting out. And one of them, surprisingly, in New Orleans is this Airbnb of it's like a shack inside of a warehouse. So think that someone with zero construction experience was like, I'm gonna build a tiny house out of just random construction material, like a little bit of plywood here, some cardboard over here, whatever else, right? And it's like a little tiny house, but it's sitting in a weird warehouse looking thing, and it's renting out for like $35 a night. And the reviews of people are like, I loved it. They were like, that I loved it. It was like this weird, unique experience. And I was like, what? This Airbnb thing is ridiculous. The sky's the limits of what you can do.
So if I want a horror movie experience to stay at somewhere, I go to New Orleans and book it on Airbnb, and I can feel like I was in a horror movie for the night.
Oh, 100%.
So, oh man, that's ridiculous.
100%.
So even on top of that, when you were getting ready to transition into the Airbnb, the extra stuff that you had laying in the room that you didn't use anymore, did you find out that you can actually sell that, or did you keep it in there and find another use for it? That, because that's also another income right there, is all the stuff that we hoard in rooms that we will never use again and forced to actually get rid of it. If you're actually looking into this, what did you do with it?
All that honestly went out to storage.
Oh.
So it's like a slightly like a mother-in-law suite, but it has AC, it's got power. And we just use it for storage right now. That's probably something we can talk about here in a second, because we're looking to add water and sewage out there as well. Because we want to turn that into an Airbnb rental. Because it's got its own private area. You don't even have to come into our house. It's what it, and it might cost us a few $1,000s to get it squared away, but you'll make that money back in less than a year, like way less than a year. Doing it that way. So we didn't sell anything. It's just sitting in storage right now. But most of the stuff that was in the guest bedroom, honestly, was exactly what you needed for an Airbnb. It had a bed, it had a desk, it had a TV, it had a TV stand, and then your closet and a few amenities we added. Like, I think the only thing we really added to it, honestly, was probably a Keurig. That was
Everybody
it.
needs their caffeine.
That's really all it needed. I think we did that. We added a few lamps. The Joker was ready to go.
So very little investment for our listeners in case, try to get the steps for them. So you clean up the room, you make it. I'm sure they have a list of requirements that they have so you can actually list it on their website, right?
That's right. And it's pretty straightforward walks. Like they'll walk you through the whole process. And the cool thing about Airbnb's site is they don't force you to upload everything at once. Right.
Even better.
It is. It's like, hey, we need some bare necessity stuff to get this listed. And you're like, cool. So you need photos, you need a description, you need, to make sure you have the bare necessities for someone to check in and stay at your place and check out. Right. So you need those things, which is honestly not a whole lot. And then over time, Airbnb will start asking you, hey, do you want to start adding do you have a washing machine available at your site? Do you have smoke alarm detectors and whatever else? So it doesn't bombard you initially and get you super overwhelmed to get that stuff up and running. So that part's, we did it on our phone with a smartphone. We didn't even do it on a laptop. We took photos, we uploaded them, we typed in some stuff like, hey, this is our home. Please don't smoke in it or burn it down. And here's the check-in instructions. And then a lot of the messaging you can just automate.
Oh, that's
so someone books, the messaging's automated, like the check-in instructions, like, hey, make sure you're aware of this, the checkout instructions, like a lot of that's like very hands-off, which is like really great for those who's like, I don't want another chore, regardless if it pulls in money. In this case, it's a very low effort move to get an Airbnb up and running. I think the biggest fear for us though was having strangers come into our home.
With your family and whatnot, how did you deal with that? Because a lot of people are going to be nervous. It's like, do I have to lock everything away? Do I have to, get the chains out for the jewel? Count all the silverware and make sure it's polished and put there, and pictures of everything before they come and leave. How did you deal with that?
There's a couple, like if you look up like Airbnb horror stories, they have been some, period. Like there's also hotel horror story. And there's horror stories for every industry. So, but usually the horror stories are what get the most limelight. So usually people read those things and they get psyched out. What's big with Airbnb is like guests get verified just as thoroughly as hosts do, which is pretty neat, right? And they also get reviewed. So something we did initially is we're not going to let anyone in that doesn't have a review yet, right? We don't want to be a guinea pig. So funny enough, the very few people that came through that initial Airbnb listing we had, hardly any of them were new to Airbnb. They had been using it for a while. They had been tested out by other people who said they're clean, they're quiet, they keep to themselves, very friendly, conversational, whatever else, right? And we're like, cool. So you have this level of that there's not necessarily a complete stranger. You can see that they've stayed in other places and they were respectful. They also have to identify their identities. You can't have someone come in, take your stuff, and then leave. Because Airbnb is like, hey, we got your driver's license, we know who you are, and you have air coverage, which is like Airbnb's insurance as well. Which is pretty nice. You do need to know how to use that properly, right? Because there are rules. So any kind of insurance, when you're trying to do a claim, there's rules.
There's always rules,
claim,
especially
right?
that small print.
Yeah, they need that stuff, right? So air coverage is no different. So if you have someone come in and let's say they I don't know, poop on the bed. I don't know. We've never had that happen, but let's say they break or they take some. Let's say they take the TV. We've never had this happen, but let's say they take the TV. There's certain things that air coverage is like, hey, if you're doing a claim, we just need to have these things in place to actually validate that this is something we cover, which is, it makes sense. But usually what happens is new people at Airbnb, something does happen, 6 months, a year into doing it. And someone's like, oh my gosh, someone stole the blender. And then, they take some time, they wait to actually submit a claim. And there's timelines for how you need to submit things and so whatever else. So that stuff's important. And usually you learn that the hard way once and you're like, oh, maybe I should actually understand how this works.
Yeah. That's when you start reading the other fine print.
You start reading it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's amazing. Now, compared to, you've done traditional renting as well
That's right.
of your home.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do some comparisons, and what's it like to do both from your point of view? Do you think, well, of course there's more hands-on work with normal renting compared to Airbnb, but help me and the listeners actually understand what made you actually transition into this, and vice versa, or what are the pros of actually keeping both?
Okay, we're keeping both. Here, let me step forward a few steps from our journey. That kind of set up the what we did and why. So after we realized, after about 6 months of using our spare bedroom as an Airbnb, and it no longer, like, our house no longer was a liability. It was an asset, and I was like, amazing, right? So, and you didn't have to rent out the entire home to make an asset. You use a very small footprint in your home to create an asset that actually either paid for itself, which means you had other people paying down your mortgage, building up your equity, meaning also you could then open up a HELOC, so a home equity line of credit, then to purchase another property that someone else is paying for, which is amazing. So then at that point, we kind of got a little bit more aggressive. Like, what does it look like to go buy a property strictly to just do Airbnb? And so that's what we did, starting at near that midway point of 2021. We went into the town over, which was a little bit bigger. There was a university, there's 2 large hospitals, so a little bit more reason for people to come in, right? So we've already proved it out with our small town home. So we bought a property, and it was like 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. And we realized, just looking on Airbnb, that listings that do whole house listings, because you can do either or, you can do a room, you can do a whole house, right?
Wow.
Okay. The whole house listings, meaning you can rent out the entire home, short-term rental, all right, did not do well. They didn't get rented out a lot because the price range just didn't fit for our market. So they get rented on weekends. They get rented out during like football season, but off season and things of that sort, the numbers did not look good, right? You might as well just traditionally rented the place out. And so we realized the properties, and there was only a handful that did individual rooms, like that price point and that market booked out almost 80% of the time.
Wow.
Which is a big deal for your profit and the revenue you could pull in from a property. So we settled, we found a house, we ran some numbers, just kind of comparing, literally not extensive numbers, just comparing, like, what would it look like worst case, right? Let's say our occupancy was like not good. Let's say it was like 50%, right? Could we still cover the mortgage and expenses and things of that sort? And it was like, yes, even on a bad month, we can do pretty well here. And so in a traditional home in our area, like, you're doing amazing if you can pull in passively $200 traditionally, which is not a lot.
No, that's not a lot. That's like nothing.
That's nothing, right? But that's a stand, like, that you pull $200 a month in passive income, and people go, wow, you're doing great. And that works at scale. So if you have the capital or the know-how to go buy an apartment complex, all right, cool. You have 10 units, they're all bringing in 200 each. That's $2,000 a month. Okay, all right. I can see where that works at scale. But if you have a single family home, it's just one house.
Right.
Yuck. That's not worth it.
No,
that's not worth it. So we did individual room. We had 5 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms was it's actually a base subfloor that we didn't even rent out because it needed to be renovated. So we just had 4 and 3 baths. And we put locks on all of them, set up the whole property, got it furnished. That was one of the most expensive parts, was furnishing the place. It cost us about $3,000 per room, plus the kitchen, all in all. So it costs about $12,000 to furnish the entire home just to get it up and ready. And that's a little scary if you're not used to kind of doing something like that. You weren't sure would work.
Oh yeah.
So we opened our doors in November of 2021. And even in the winter months, which is typically slower, even hotels are like, it's harder in the winter, unless you're a winter touristy location or there's some reason to travel there. will lower their prices and try to keep occupancy up. We did not struggle. We've been running like high 70, 80s, and sometimes 90% occupancy. And here's the cool part. On a bad month, we'll still pull in $1,000 a month. On a great month, we'll pull in 2,500. It's crazy. So comparing that to a traditional rented out home that you make $200 a month, and compare that to a bad month of making 1,000, and a great month of 2,500, it's a night. It's 9 day. It's a 9 day difference.
Oh, absolutely. And now on top of that, you brought up a very good point. Your home is now an asset instead of a liability. So now you're not constantly putting money into it as if 90% of us do, of the repairs and the maintenance, the upkeep, the replacement of things, something breaks or whatever. That's still coming out of your pocket. Now it's actually coming out of someone else's pocket.
It comes out of somebody else's.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, put it on the credit card. We'll pay it off at the end, at the end of the month, whatever it is, especially when you're furnishing and whatnot like that. So you actually building credit, you're making money, have assets now that you can actually start diversifying like you're doing right now, is actually expanding into 3-4 bedroom houses.
Yep.
And it's paying for itself. And
well beyond paying for itself. It is, the biggest thing about an investment is just saying, how fast can I get my money back?
Exactly.
Right. Because you want to take it out and put it somewhere else to have that start making more money for you somewhere else. So we were very quickly able to make back the money we invested for even the furnishing. And then at that point, you're pulling in money for, okay, how do we continue this? Do we buy another property? Do we make the property better so we can raise our price? Like, what do we do? So you have these cool options that you didn't have before. And you're not worried about investing your own money anymore because somebody else on a regular basis is coming in and investing into our property each and every night.
And you brought up a huge point right there that you skimmed over a little bit, is you can start charging more money now on top of that. Because now you actually upgraded it. Oh, it looks more luxurious. You got instead of the single Keurig, you got the you got the pod Keurig, and you got a little espresso machine on the corner. And the refrigerator will remind you, hey, your leftovers are here. So have you seen that how you invested in the property has a better return than if you just kept it bare minimum?
Probably. We're still in the early stages of that, because like the easiest thing to do to raise prices is to continue getting reviews, right? So you get reviews for your property. So initially you got none. You got zero, right? Just like, you have people that you're taking a risk on staying in your place. If they don't have a lot of reviews, right? They're taking a risk going to a new property. And so you typically charge less, significantly less for those initial first people. And so we kept our prices pretty low initially, and we've just recently raised them up. And we were still profitable at the lower amount. So we're like, let's keep rolling, let's keep invest, figure out what we're gonna do with this money. In the meantime, let's keep racking up these reviews. And then we raised our prices, and then you're just determining, all right, do we see a lower occupancy? Are we making more money? And so now you can really test things and tweak things. One of the cool things about Airbnb that a lot of your maybe your hotels or maybe your competitors won't do is you can take the money and reinvest it and make a themed room. Okay, make a unique experience for people to come in that they can't find anywhere else. And so when you can pull on that kind of passive income in, and you can start investing to make these rooms, like just deck them out into, whether it's like, we've played around with thoughts of making a room that's like Japanese themed.
Okay.
Like all out, like the floor futon, not like a traditional American futon, like a floor futon, decorated like you would be, like if you were to stay at a place in Japan, like what would it look like? What technology would you have, and things of that sort. And so just thinking about and playing with this is it makes things really exciting, because at that point you can turn a room that you charge $45 a night for to something you can charge well over $120 a night, because you can't get it anywhere else.
Also, with you bringing that up, a lot of people travel from across the world to come here for work. They miss their home. They do. If you think about it, I worked with a lot of Japanese people from Tokyo, Osaka, and whatnot, and they actually were trying to find houses to actually make them feel less anxious, if you will, a little bit of home with them.
Yeah.
So depending on the city and where you're at, you may want to look into that as well, because I know when they would actually stay in a giant city, they would actually do that, and it didn't matter what they were paying because the company's paying for it.
That's right.
So of course, the company credit card comes out, and then cha-ching.
Funny enough, you say that. We've had people from Germany. We've had people from the UK. We've had people from, I believe, Malaysia. People from Russia before the Russia debacle that's going on right now. But we had people from all over the world coming to Mississippi and looking for a place to stay. And so like quite a few international people coming into Mississippi, staying in our Airbnbs and getting to talk with them. And like, that's been awesome as well. I mean, it's kind of like more like an icing on the cake deal, but yeah, definitely have some people from international, not a lot. You're not going to see it like it is in Atlanta, New York, California, some of your bigger metropolitans, but it's definitely cool to see them come through and stay in our places.
Oh, definitely. And then when I was traveling for work and working with those gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, I learned a lot of their culture, and it's nice to actually see what they actually bring to the table when they're staying there, and they want someone to talk to as well. So it's a two-way street there. You learn more and they learn about you.
Yeah.
And you build that connection. You got a repeat customer. And that's a lost art these days, of actually wanting someone as a repeat customer. It's like, okay, well, nowadays everywhere you go, it's like, okay, well, here it is. This is the price. Get out the door. When you see that also reflects in your reviews. Like you're saying, you need more reviews. You need positive reviews.
Yeah.
And then just like anything else that needs a review, they compound, and then you see the end results.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the flexibility of what you can do and manage with stuff you already have, right? Using your assets you already have, and then just growing from there. We were able to grow really quickly in a small town. I feel like there's a lot of people listening who they're in that same situation, that they don't live in big towns.
No.
Or maybe they do, but they have this spare bedroom and they think, oh, well, this wouldn't work for me. It's like, I would challenge you to say, give it a shot, try it. And if it's a horrible experience, don't ever do it again. But at least like you come in, you're like, wow, I just turned something I didn't know could be an asset into something that generates income.
That is wonderful. And right there, we're going to do a little recap right now. I'm Magnus Carter. I'm here with my guest, Cody Smith. We are talking about transforming your house to actually generating money for you, and making more money for you. And we're talking about actually renting out the spare bedrooms and getting it all ready for guests and whatnot. And we're going to take a quick break. I want to thank you for tuning in. If you have questions for Cody or anything that we're talking about right here, you can give us a call at 1-866-472-5789. And we're going to take a little break right now. We're going to come right back with more with Cody and how our houses can make more money for us.
You're clear.
Thank you. Crazy.
This is fun.
Yeah, it is.
It feels like a next level podcast. Like podcasts, you just go straight through from the ones that I've done. This is cool. I mean, you got the American. I didn't catch his name at the beginning. What's your name? Voice
I'm
America.
Josh.
Josh. That's what it is. Like, got Josh running in the background, making sure all this goes smoothly. This is great. This is awesome.
It's definitely a giant thing from being on podcasts and whatnot. It's because you're actually being broadcast all over the world right now.
And you got a phone number.
And a phone number.
That's crazy.
Yep.
What's it been like? How active are the phone lines typically for?
Not really, but the listeners are
It usually
getting,
takes a few months for people to call in. Like you got to think
Get
like
comfortable.
maybe 10% of your total listening audience is the kind of person that's going to pick up a phone and call
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever called into a radio show before.
Yeah, most people they're like, oh, unless it was tickets, I didn't really call.
If you're caller number 7,
I give you a free book.
that's great.
Yeah, like Twitter and all that kind of stuff is also a great tool because people can send you messages over that, and you can get those in real time
Yeah, it's a
too.
lot easier for them just to send out a tweet and then.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is there an
All right,
intro
Jordan, we
after
got
it
about
comes back?
15 seconds. Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, we'll have an intro coming back in,
All right.
and we'll get back to it.
Rock
I'll
on.
do a recap quick, and we'll get back.
Cool.
You're listening to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming back if you're already listening to us. I'm Magnus Carter. I am your host of the Making More Money for You show, author, and radio show host now. One quick thing I want to let you know is there's banners on my webpage here, and those little banners will take you to my books. If you enjoy the show, what you're hearing here, my books have 10 times more content in them. And if you decide to do that and take the step in making a better future for you tomorrow, a better tomorrow for you today, if you like what you have, make sure you leave a review for the books. Right now, I have Cody Smith. We're talking about making our houses money generators. We talked about traditional renting. We talked about Airbnbs. We've talked about also what is necessary to actually transition your house, rooms, or whole house into an Airbnb to make money for you. If you're just tuning in, we've also talked about doing theme rooms, and this is where we're at right now. Welcome back, Cody. And
Glad to be back. Breaks are great, but I mean, the fun part is being here and talking on the show for sure. I'm having a blast. I mean, Magnus, where do you want to take it from here? I mean, we got to briefly talk about, jumping into theme rooms and things of that sort. But I mean, we can take it from literally anywhere from here.
Yeah, there's so much to do with it. We have houses, we have apartment buildings. There's so much that can actually be done here. We went over also how to furnish the room and how to actually upgrade your rooms to charge more money, as long as you have reviews. But like you were saying, Cody, you have to have reviews so people will actually look at your establishment to stay at. And the more reviews you have, more positive reviews, will go with that even more. Instead of just regular reviews, the more likely you're going to book, and you're going to be able to actually pick and you can actually pick and choose who you want to stay at your house, right?
That's correct. Yeah, you can be very picky about who you allow to stay. So if you have someone come in, they got no reviews, and they just because you can see like, okay, this person literally made an account this month. Like, I think this past week we had someone try and book for a whole week, which is great. I love longer term guests. My favorite of those who stay for several months. We have students and traveling nurses and things of that sort who stay pretty long. Okay. Those are wonderful. The consistency is there is great, but we have some people who try and book and they just made an account. You can see that, like, right. Oh, you made an account April 2022. I don't think so. Like, I just don't want to even go down that route of trying them out in our home and finding out that they don't know the Airbnb culture. They don't know the Airbnb, like what it's like. I think we had one person sneak through the cracks and they got approved by accident. We were in a hurry and they ended up being fine, but they treated it like it was a hotel. It's not a hotel. It's someone's home. Right. So and most people within Airbnb understand that, like they get that someone's home. And even if it's, they don't, the person who lives there, the people who own the place don't live there.
Mhm.
People are generally very, very respectful of your things. And half the time won't even go and, they have access to the kitchen, they have access to the living room, but they just won't use it. They really just want a place to crash in their own room and some privacy and things of that sort. So having that control usually makes it really easy, and like easing people into Airbnb because they can see like, oh, wow, this person has 30 reviews. Everyone says they're amazing, very quiet and whatever else. So you have all this proof that this person isn't a serial killer.
That is important nowadays because anything can happen and anything does happen, especially with that. Now, you brought up a lot of good talking points here. Is now which one do we want to talk about? I want to actually talk about you're living in the house. It's your home. You're living there, and they're a guest. They're a paying guest.
Yep.
Now, do you in like the refrigerator, like the common areas, do you keep like a special area for them so they can actually store their food if they go out to eat, or like areas for their belongings as well if they need to?
Yeah. So when it comes to their belongings, they usually just keep that in their room. All of our rooms, even in our home where we still rent out our guest bedroom, all have keypad locks. Right.
Okay.
So I don't really have to worry about them having access to stuff they shouldn't. So, I mean, I guess if they wanted to go into the supply closet and steal a bunch of toilet paper, they could. But
that's so 2020.
Again, typically you just don't. It doesn't happen, especially since we're in the home. And you get to have a conversation with people, right? They come in and they're like, where are you coming from? Like, oh, we're on a family trip. We're coming in from like Georgia, flying through to Mississippi, heading on to Louisiana to Texas, and then making a loop back. And like, it's very cool to meet people. But yeah, so they usually typically can just store things in the room because they can just keep it locked. And then we have a shelf for them in the fridge where there's like, this is the Airbnb shelf. Enjoy.
Wow, good deal. Good deal. Yeah, because, I'm sure they ask you, I'm sure you get asked all the time. It's like, where's there a good place to eat around here? Because
all the time.
I guarantee
all the time.
So do you have like charts made up for this, or do you talk to them every time, or
funny enough? So there's two options you have. Well, I guess there's three. One, you could just have like some canned messages ready to go out via the messaging app within the Airbnb app. Okay. So you can do that, but typically it's a lot easier for one, like the Airbnb I'm in right now, they have a guide, a house guide, and in it, they have information about local places to go eat and whatever else. Right. So as soon as you get there, you have these little booklets like, oh, like I have this information from people who live here telling me exactly where I should go eat. If I want sushi, if you want pizza, if you want, barbecue, there, and places not to go. They're like, this place is barbecue steaks. Don't go there. So stuff like that. So you can, there's a couple of different ways to go about it. I like the house guide, honestly, just be able to flip through it and see what are the places to go. And our guests usually appreciate that as well.
Well, yeah, and then if they ask you, it's like, okay, how many times have you eaten here in the last week, or whatever? Is this like your go-to place, or is there one a little better that you're not putting in this book?
Right. No, we give them all. Right. So if they're looking for Vietnamese, like they're looking for a nice bowl of pho, we got you. If you're looking for Indian cuisine, we got you. If you're looking for like a nice juicy burger, we got you. Right. So whatever you need, the staples of like what you could potentially have a craving for, we cover that.
Okay. All right. So all that, the food's covered. Of course, you have your fast food joints, you have your local joints, so that takes care of the food, drinking, and drinks and whatnot, because you have a Keurig now. So, do you supply Keurig those supplies for the person, or
yeah, they'll get pods every room, depending on how long you're there. Like typically, we'll throw 2 pods in there for a one-night stay. If you're there longer, you just request it. There's a whole supply closet for you to go in and grab some stuff.
Okay. All right.
So as much as like you can automate things and have them do something and allow them to be able to take care of themselves at your property, like the better. Right. So even something as simple as, because, our property with the 5 bedrooms is in another town.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we initially had it, we managed it ourselves. Okay. And so we would flip rooms. Right. So we'd go over there, flip the rooms, clean them up, get them set up again, and do that. And so that was great. especially because it allowed us to learn a system for flipping rooms, doing it very quickly, very efficiently, and make sure everything was clean. Because at some point we were looking to have someone come and do that for us and live on site. Because at some point you want to step away from your investment and take back your time. Okay.
Time is very valuable nowadays.
It's incredibly invaluable. So when you have a property that is cash flowing the way it does, $500, $1,000, $2,500 a month, you have leeway now and margin to take a step back and use some of that money to take and buy back your time. So we were able to find someone who was looking for a place to stay, right? Had a flexible job, could flip rooms, right? And we could offer them a deal for like lower rent and just manage property. So now we have a person on site. They watch after everything for us. They let us know something weird's happening. And they flip the rooms. So they have the schedule, they can go flip rooms. And that has saved us so much time and has truly made this very, very passive.
I'd say it's passive. Now you brought up a great point. With owning a business, you need SOPs, standard operating procedures.
That's right.
You know, a lot of people don't understand this because they'll do it once one way, do it second time another way, and third time, and now you're wasting time and whatnot because you don't really know which one works. Now, do you supply these SOPs? Do you have them written down somewhere that it's like, okay, here's your Google Drive. It's like, okay, well, I came into contact with this, and here's my procedure to get this done.
Yeah, that's something we need to have written down, honestly, on a guide that we keep there, because we haven't done that yet. It's just been something that slowly happened over time with the person who's currently watching and managing the property.
Okay.
So she knows the process. She does part, and we still go and visit and just do quality checks just to go check it out. And sometimes she got to leave, so we'll go back and we'll start flipping rooms as well, and that gives us a good chance to look at the property as well. But honestly, there's like simple things of like, look under the beds, right? Do not forget to look under the beds because people do weird stuff. Dude, they'll throw like all their trash under the bed, and you're like, there's a trash can in the room, and they're like little Snapple bottles, Mountain Dew bottles, and stuff like under the bed, or just like tissue or stuff like that, and you're just like, you just got to look for that because you'll have guests come and they'll go look under the beds to see if the place is actually clean. If they see stuff like that, where there's just like a can of Dr. Pepper or something, they go, oh, they really didn't clean this place good. And then, people will jump to conclusions, which is in their right mind. They're not wrong. Obviously, it wasn't cleaned well. Didn't even check under the bed.
Yeah, not a lot, especially not the avid travelers know how to do that stuff. But you get someone that's been traveling for their job and all the time, they break out the white gloves to go look, and they got their little blue light and everything to check everything going on. So yeah, I can see you getting with the SOPs and making sure that your person that's caretaking for you is doing her job. The quality checks is definitely good. You still want to keep, even though it's passive, you still want to be interacting with the people.
For sure.
Especially with that.
I mean, we interact with the people that still come to our home where we have a spare bedroom, right? And we interact we interact via the Messenger app for the other property. Okay. But oftentimes we're not meeting in person unless something bad happens. Recently, the AC unit just crapped out like 2 weeks ago. And we are in Mississippi, South Mississippi. So it's hot. Yeah. It's a hot place. It's, people come from like Colorado or whatever, or Phoenix or somewhere. They're like, it's a dry heat. We do not have a dry heat. It is wet and moist. It's like living in a cloud. So you need AC. And so it went down. And so we called it a guy. He was like, it's going to be several $1,000s. And like, normally if it's like your home AC and you're like, crap, was not accounting to spend several $1,000s on an AC unit. But luckily with the Airbnb property, wasn't a big deal. Like I've never been at such low stress about paying several $1,000s for an AC repair because it just didn't have to come out of my money. It didn't have to come out of my paycheck.
And plus on top of that, it's a tax write-off because you need to get it fixed.
You got to get it fixed.
You have your tax there. You put the money out that someone else is paying for.
Mhm.
and you actually literally made money on it, more money on it because you're deducting it at
100%.
at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
So it in the end, like it all works out. And honestly, the AC unit was pretty old, right? So being able to upgrade it and put a new one in and a new compressor in and everything else, you're like, that was a good investment for our area. Well, funny enough, we had guests and we're like, hey, we were so sorry. We can cancel your reservation so you can go somewhere else that's not boiling level hot. And we had several guests who were like, nah, I'm good.
wow.
Like days, stayed there for days. And like, they were like, nah, I'm good. I'll stay. Still got good reviews, you know? So it just put out a good product, be human, right? And then, you know, if something messes up, you know, the last thing you want to do is get defensive about something. You know, my wife stayed at an Airbnb with a group of women at a conference recently, and the place just wasn't clean. It had like pet hair everywhere. It looked like they didn't quite change the sheets.
Ooh.
They just kind of remade the bed.
Okay.
And so they were showing them like the guys like, hey, just want to let you know, like, I don't think your cleaning crew came in and cleaned the place well. He's like, no, they did. And they were like, well, here's the pictures. This place isn't clean. They were like, no, it's not possible. They have to send live photos of everything. And so instead of just like being like, I'm so sorry, what can I do to make it up to you? Like the guy was like, no, you're lying. You're a liar.
Oh my.
That place is clean. And you're like, that was like such a weird experience. Like my wife sent me all like the chats and everything for it. And I was like, that is weird. That's a weird thing to get defensive about. And that's a weird thing to do to your guests and your hosts, right? So honestly, it doesn't take a whole lot to be human and nice to people and still get good reviews. The bar sometimes is pretty low.
You'd be surprised. A good thank you or even a hello will get you even more recognized.
We do custom notes for guests.
Okay.
And so they come in, they say, you know, hi, John, welcome to our place, or welcome John and guest or something like that. So there's honestly like little things you can do with Airbnb that hotels just don't do.
Right? Yeah, hotels don't do it. But a lot of things that we talked about actually on our last episode on vacation, you know, cruises. Are you into the folding towels right now? Are you putting towels and stuff on there?
Kind of like a swan.
Yeah, you get a swan, you get a bear, you can make a kangaroo.
We haven't, but you know, I've looked at stuff like that on like YouTube of like how to do it. But we're so into like quick flips. Right. So at this point, it's like if we can't consistently do it, we're not doing it. But I want to. Like I want to get me into some swan towel folds because I think it just looks cool and it's a nice touch.
You get that swan towel with your theme room of like, let's see, what would be Swanish? Maybe like the Canadian theme room or something with a swan there, or a goose staring at you as you walk in the door.
Look, we've looked at themes and we're like, what if we turn one room into an escape room to where like not only do you get a place to stay, but you get an escape room experience, right? And you have to do it in a way that's like an easy setup and breakdown and whatever else. Mm-hmm. So there's some logistics stuff there, but I'm like, you could charge way more by throwing in the escape room experience plus a night place to stay. Like, I feel like that would be so cool. And so having a fusion of different businesses and value adds, like, just seems like the sky's the limit.
Most definitely, especially with that. You have a garage, you can make a laser tag place. Dead serious. You have a giant garage that you're not doing anything on a property. Garage space is very, very, precious. I'll put it that way. But if you have like a 2-bay garage and stuff there, you can actually probably make that a laser tag place.
Look, I think there's like so much room for people to turn areas and dead space into assets. Like there's even, what am I thinking of? It's like Airbnb, but for rental storage, to where like you can rent out storage in your home, or if you have like some storage in the back that you're not being used, like people can rent out space in your storage monthly.
Wow.
Right. So you're not doing anything with it any of the way.
Yeah.
Half the time. Right. So it's either just holding your junk or holding nothing. So why not allow that to where like super, super low effort,
Mhm.
you know, you just make the storage space. Maybe you got to do a little bit of framing to put walls up, allow them to be able to lock it and get to their stuff, and like you're done. So you have a minimum investment, minimum effort, and just charge a little bit less than the local storage units.
Oh, I agree with that. You know, you brought up a great point. You don't even have to put fence put like uh board it in like a wall room. Just put chain
Nope.
link fence up.
Yep.
Boom. As long as you have a barrier there, you're good. What out of all of your experiences with this and getting someone's that probably interested in doing this, or we spark some ideas on how
Yeah.
this can actually work. What are your 5 small steps to get started with this?
Yeah. So the first step is to evaluate your current situation, right? So like take your current opportunities that are literally right before your very eyes, right? So if you have a spare bedroom or you're living in an apartment and that allows you to sublease, right? And you live in a 2-bedroom and you're really just using one, right? Look at, can I turn this into an Airbnb? Can I turn this into something that I don't have to go and buy a property?
Okay.
That's a big deal. Being able to take what you already have, quickly turn it into a business within like less than a week, right? You're already up and listing. You're already getting people to come in and rent out your place. You're like, oh, like proof of concept, really, really fast, like really, really fast. Okay. So, and then just let that drive the expansion from there. Right. So start really small. That's the beauty of Airbnb. You don't have to go buy a property. You can use what you already have available to you. For those who live in apartments and you are able to sublease, you don't even have to own the property. Right. You're like, yeah. So you're like, go and do that. See if you can turn that into like being rent free, right? Where you're living for free. And at that point, invest that money into like, all right, now that I'm not paying to live at this location, let's see what I can do to take this money and put that into another property to make this scale. Right.
Yeah.
And so now you can start getting your feet wet. You can start figuring out how the whole system works, put your own systems in place. So by the time you're ready to buy a property, not only you're already pulling in money from it's like a spare bedroom or something like that, right? You already know what you're doing. Now you're just taking it to the next level.
Fair enough. That's great start. Those are great starting points, Cody. You know, we all have that extra space that we don't know what to do with, and we have a lot of, you know, people this day and age, working's not enough anymore. You know, we got to find other ways to, you know, supplement. You know, the cost of everything's going up as well. So, you know, having your house make money for you, even to pay your house taxes, then you're actually going into a business for yourself, and all that stuff is right. You know, you can write that off as tax.
Oh man,
tax
100%, 100%. And you'd be surprised how many people that are in their retirement years Airbnb out those spare bedrooms that, you know, their kids have moved out. They got these bigger homes, you know, and they'll rent out these other spare bedrooms on Airbnb. And like really significantly lower their living expenses because of that, because of the share economy and being able to tap into that. It's really, really cool.
So yeah, you know, the sky's the limit with this. Like you're saying, start small, break into it, get your standard operating procedures getting done, check out your zoning. If you're renting, checking out your lease in case you need to sublet. Also, you know, follow what is on Airbnb for those, you know, the rules, regulations, setup, insurance rates. They'll walk you through it like you're saying, and you can pretty much, you did it on your phone. Don't even need a computer. So that's even the best thing there. So you can literally make money while you're still sitting at home. I want to take a couple minutes for your contact information, Cody. You know, how can we contact you if, you know, you want to get questions or you have anything that you would like to promote on this, like your Airbnb, where we can actually find you if we want to stay in Mississippi. So I'll let you handle, you know, this is your moment here. So how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, if y'all want to come out to Mississippi, stay at our place, we can put, I don't know, a link to those in the show notes. But if anyone has a question, you can reach out to me at AllenCodySmith@gmail.com. And it's ALLENCODYSMITH@gmail.com. It's Nothing fancy, just a generic email address I've had forever. But if you have some questions about it, I'd be happy to answer those.
Oh, fantastic, Cody. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being on the show with us. Next week, we actually have a special guest. I'm actually looking up at that right now. And I believe next week is the 3rd already. We're already going to be into May.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. I have a special guest of Adam Torres coming on the show next week. And we're going to talk about some investing that he's done and how he's helped families make more money for themselves as well. Once again, Cody, I wish to thank you for your time, your insight here. And, you know, I hope you had a great time here talking about this with me.
I had a blast. Thanks for having me on the show. I'll be back anytime. It's my pleasure. It's been great being here.
Oh, fantastic. Everyone, thank you for dialing in. One quick thing, assess your property, see if you can actually do this and turn your house into making money so you can have a better tomorrow and enjoy life for a while. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
All right, you're clear.